I hate undesirables and hooligans of any kind. Honestly, I really do. I really do. You know, I've watched a lot of cop shows, and I've been around a little bit. You work with a partner, is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Pantucci, we often work with a partner.
All right, let me give you a scenario here. Let's say a partner and you are sitting in your car hour after hour. You're smoking cigarettes, you're drinking coffee, eating donuts, you're on a stakeout, right?
You mean sitting on a plant, Mr. Pantucci. Stakeout's a television term.
Sitting on a plant? Oh, we're on a cactus. But let's say you and your partner, you go back to the station house and you take showers together and, well, you know, things happen. Did you ever fall in love with a partner? Oh, maybe not. No, I don't think maybe he could fall in love with a partner. What about anonymous tips? Anonymous tips are good. Anonymous tips. Now here's right now I have something that's very dear to my heart. I mean, from what I've read, searches. What constitutes a legal search as opposed to an illegal search?
Well, Mr. Pantucci, depends if you're talking warrants or warrantless searches. I already explained the warrant search earlier. Warrantless search would be, say, plain view type searches. Say I pull you over for parking violations. I have the right, by the way, to have you get out of your vehicle. Just the fact that I'm pulling you over for parking violation gives me that right. So I call you out of your vehicle. And say you appear inebriated to me, Mr. Pantucci, so you can't walk a straight line.
Inebriated.
And while you're getting out of the car, you tell me that maybe you forgot your license or something in the car, and you turn around to get it. And me not wanting you to turn around with a gun in your hand, I get close to you and look over your shoulder to see what you're reaching for. There happens to be a knife or something on the floor or on the seat, somewhere in what's called plain view. And now the right to search the rest of that car for other possible weapons that might be within your reach or you might have the ability to get to and use on either me or another officer or one of the tax-paying citizens of this fine city.
Well, let's say a guy's driving, not anybody we know, but let's say a guy's driving a 68 Camaro convertible with Roland Tuck leather upholstery and fins, and he's driving down the road and he runs a red light. Are you allowed to search his trunk?
Well, Mr. Pantucci, depends who's driving the car in that case.
All right, I'll give you another scenario, detective. Let's say a man is driving his car and there's an arm hanging out of the trunk with a magic marker scrawling help all over the trunk. Would that be, not that it ever happened because it didn't, but would that be considered justifiable cause?
I'm not sure if I understand what you mean by justifiable cause. I think you mean probable cause, Mr.
Yes, that's
Pantucci.
exactly what I mean.
And yes, I'd say that any normal conscientious police officer seeing a hand coming out of the trunk would say that's an unusual situation. At least you'd be able to say that's articulable suspicion that there's something wrong. And if you're scrawling help, that would definitely be probable cause that either some sort of illegal activities at foot or something is wrong. Anybody I know that speaks or reads the English language understands that help means help. Do you understand that much, Mr. Pantucci? Am I losing you?
Help means help, you know. In fact, you know, most
So in that case, Mr. Pantucci, a law enforcement officer would be able to go over to the car and open up the trunk, search the trunk, and probably the rest of the car, too.
Well, you know, I'll tell you something. The rights in this country have been going downhill ever since the Fourth Amendment came out in 1968, or whenever it came out. You know, it's very, very tough. It's very hard. What about surveillance, okay? This is a main consideration to a lot of people, a lot of hardworking, legitimate businessmen. And let's say, you know, are you allowed to plant bugs in places of business or social clubs?
Mr. Pantucci, the way the law reads, basically what it states, is that you cannot bug or use electronic surveillance devices unless one member of a party desires it, asks for it, wishes for it, or consents to it. In other words, say you misplace your trust in the wrong partner and he decides to cop a plea or work with a law enforcement officer and we wire him. he goes in there and you cut a deal with him. That wasn't illegal surveillance because he consented to it. And just like I said, you misplaced your trust in the wrong sort of individual.
There's a lot of untrustable hooligans running around this day, and I understand this, you know. It could be very, very difficult. Let's say, I'll give you a different scenario. Let's say you go, I want to know actually what constitutes entrapment, specifically.
Well, I'll try to explain this basically as I can for someone like you, Mr. Pantucci. Entrapment is basically when a law enforcement officer plants the seed or the idea of a crime or to commit a crime in an otherwise innocent man's mind. For example, say a law enforcement officer acts as a junkie or somebody that needs drugs desperately, and he knows of somebody who has access to drugs, say heroin for example, and that person otherwise would never have sold this drug, but this cop keeps on pestering him or something like that, trying to get a good collar, get a good bust, and eventually this man sells the drugs. That would be entrapment because the man otherwise wouldn't have done that. Of course, that would never, ever, ever happen here in New York City because our police department is impeccable. We do not do things like that. I want you to understand that.
Sure, of course.